Welcome to this Vishlation. Today, we're diving straight into the life of an absolute titan of the 20th century. We are exploring the art, the relentless activism, and the sheer cultural force of Tukaram Bawarao Sathe, who you probably know affectionately as Annabhau Sathe. If you're at all interested in how everyday narrative forms can be completely flipped into powerful instruments for social criticism and mass mobilization, well, you are going to absolutely love this.
Right out of the gate, I want you to listen to this. The earth does not rest on the head of the mythical serpent Sheshnag, but on the palms of Dalit and working-class people. Just let that sink in for a second. With that one explosive statement, Annabhau Sathe completely dismantled centuries of traditional mythological justifications for how the world is ordered. He literally shifted the center of the universe away from the elites and the heavens, dropping it squarely onto the calloused, hardworking hands of laborers and marginalized folks. That wasn't just a clever phrase, it was the entire heartbeat of his life's work.
And that actually brings us to a huge core mystery. How does a man who spent basically zero time in a formal classroom manage to completely rewrite the rules of regional literature? It's the ultimate hero's journey, right? It totally subverts everything we're taught a literary giant is supposed to look like. Because he didn't come from a prestigious university, he came from the absolute margins of society.
Which leads us to part one, Voice of the Margins.
Born back in 1920 in the rural village of Wategang, Sathe belongs to the Mang caste, a Dalit community that historically faced the absolute worst cruelties of untouchability. His formal education, practically non-existent. He left home super early, scraping by as a laborer, a mill worker, and a performance artist. But here's the crucial takeaway. That lack of formal schooling wasn't a deficit, not at all. His lived experience of extreme rural poverty, systemic caste violence, and grueling physical labor, that became the raw, unfiltered fuel for his genius. He didn't just bypass the elite gates of literature, he essentially built his own door. He had this brilliant way of illustrating his mission. He wrote, "The life of Dalits is like water seeping through rocks. Go near and look at it." Think about that imagery. He was directly urging society, especially those who had the comfortable privilege of looking away, to come closer, to really look at the harsh, unyielding reality of marginalized communities. He wanted to show how life somehow finds a way to survive, pushing through the hardest, most unforgiving stones of systemic oppression.
Okay, let's move into chapter 2, Creation Through Struggle.
Let's quickly trace his trajectory here. It starts in rural Wategang in 1920, but fast forward to the 1950s, and he's right in the thick of Bombay, the roaring industrial hub of the era. And he isn't just working the mills, he's throwing himself entirely into cultural activism. By 1958, he channels all that energy into founding the Dalit Sahitya Sammelan, a truly monumental literary conference. He passed away way too soon, in 1969 at just 48, but the sheer amount of history he packed into those Bombay decades is just staggering. What's really mind-blowing is the unbelievable volume and variety of his work. We're talking over 30 novels, piles of short story collections, plays, screenplays, and traditional ballads. His 1959 novel Fakira is an absolute masterpiece. It gives us this incredibly strong protagonist from his own community, fighting tooth and nail against feudal and caste hierarchies. It instantly became a touchstone for Dalit representation. But looking at this list of novels, plays, and ballads, there's one genre that totally catches you off guard, a travelogue. Yeah, it's a real puzzle. How exactly does an uneducated laborer born into untouchability in rural India end up publishing a travelogue called My Journey to Russia? It's an incredibly fascinating historical quirk, and I promise you, we are going to resolve that mystery in just a few minutes. So definitely hang on to that thought.
Moving on to section 3, The Weapon of Literature. To understand his impact, you have to look at what else was being written at the time. Elite literature was, well, extremely elite. It was highly Sanskritized, hyper-focused on psychological realism, and really just obsessed with the internal thoughts of privileged characters. Annabhau deliberately smashed those norms. He used colloquial Marathi dialects, local idioms, proverbs. His work wasn't meant to be read quietly in a study. It was designed to be public and performative. He swapped out individual interiority for collective emotion, democratizing literature by putting the authentic voice of the laboring class center stage. And to pull that off, he became a master of traditional folk arts, specifically Powadas, which are these soaring, heroic ballads, and tamasha, the traditional traveling folk theater. Historically, these were used to tell stories about ancient kings or just for light entertainment. But Sathe? He totally retooled them. He turned these traditional formats into dynamic public weapons for mass mobilization. He'd perform at massive political rallies and mill worker strikes to emotionally charge the crowds, completely blurring the line between highbrow literature and grassroots culture. He had a very clear compass for why he did this. He famously said, "An artist who respects the people is respected by them. I write only after learning this first." That wasn't just some nice-sounding quote. It was his rule of law. He refused to write from an ivory tower. He was out there on the protest lines, ensuring his art reflected the real dignity of the exact people he was fighting alongside. Now, let's get into Section 4, Marxism and Ambedkarism. What's really interesting about his worldview is this highly unique ideological synthesis. On one side, he was deeply rooted in Marxist thought and leftist cultural movements. He leaned heavily into class analysis, championing the worker as the true producer of wealth. But on the flip side, he fiercely embraced Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's absolute critique of caste, demanding an end to ritualized exclusion and asserting Dalit dignity. He looked at both frameworks and essentially argued that true emancipation was impossible unless you dismantled both capitalist economic exploitation and hierarchical caste oppression together. And boom, here is where we close that loop from earlier. His deep involvement with leftist cultural troops, especially the Indian People's Theatre Association, eventually put his work on an international radar. His focus on working-class solidarity resonated globally, which actually culminated in a formal invitation to visit the Soviet Union. And that trip is exactly what sparked his famous travelogue, allowing him to link the very local struggles of Bombay's millworkers to a massive global movement. Going from a marginalized village in Maharashtra to international literary recognition, it's just a stunning trajectory. Through it all, he never, ever lost his fire. Listen to this absolute mic drop of a quote. "Art is always born in the hut of the poor. What is born in palaces are the bedbugs that drink the blood of the poor." I mean, wow, it's punchy, it's aggressive, and it perfectly captures his unapologetic pride in working-class culture. He completely rejected the snobby idea that high art could only come from high society. But he always made sure to balance that intense class solidarity with his fight for caste emancipation. As he wrote, "Strike a blow to change the world," Bhimrao told me. It's a direct, reverent nod to Dr. Ambedkar's radical call to action. It proves that Annabhau didn't just see himself as a guy writing stories. He saw himself as a foot soldier with a mandate to shatter the old world and build a new, equitable one from the ground up. Which brings us to our final section, Annabhau's immortal legacy. You know, his legacy is immortal, specifically because he didn't just confine his ideas to the pages of his books. By founding platforms like the Dalit Sahitya Sammelan, he built real, lasting institutions. He institutionalized a movement. He built the stage for generations of future writers, activists, and performers to seamlessly blend their culture with grassroots politics. So he didn't just leave behind a reading list, he left behind a fully functioning blueprint for cultural resistance. As we wrap up this Sahityik Adhawa, this literary review, I want to leave you with one final, pretty provocative thought straight from his teachings. Annabhau Sathe was absolutely convinced that while caste was a harsh, systemic reality, poverty was entirely artificial, and because it was artificial, it could be destroyed. So I pose this to you. If poverty is artificial and can be destroyed, what is our active role in destroying the reality of caste today? Really think about that. Take this incredible historical inspiration and figure out how it applies to the exact world we're living in right now. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the legendary Annabhau Sathe. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you in our next visualization.